Hi, and welcome to the second live video cast of the Law Center. I'm your host and founder of the Law Center, Larry DeMarco. Thanks for joining us. We'll be coming live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. I hope you can continue to join in. And I have another special guest for my video cast tonight. This evening, we're here with Joan Kloth-Zanard. Joan has a master's degree in marriage family therapy. She's an Americans with Disabilities advocate, a guardian ad litem, a recovery support specialist. She's also trained in acquired brain injury, a life coach, and an expert in parental alienation. And she has a Department of Children and Family certification. Joan, thank you for being a guest on the Law Center videocast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Joan, I also have to acknowledge you and thank you for helping on a lot of those great videos in parental alienation. You are somewhat of a unnamed co-producer, and I thank you for your support and friendship.
Oh, you're welcome. It's well worth it, trust me.
Appreciate it. So what I'd like to talk to you about tonight is that you are the founder and board president of the Parental Alienation Support and Intervention, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to, I understand, educating and training professionals and survivors of psychological abuse. So how did you get into that type of work?
Well, 35 years ago, not only was I a victim of domestic violence, but I had been helping one of my girlfriends out, not knowing at the time that she was there was a name for this called parental alienation. It would be another 10 years later when I started dating my husband, and his second wife started alienating the kids from him when she found out he and I were dating and engaged. This second wife had also alienated him from his first son with his first wife. I fixed that relationship, and we actually have a good relationship with the first wife and his first son. It's the second two children with the second wife that we have. He's only seen them 6 times since 1996 and not at all since 2006.
Joan,
and that's kind of how we started in it.
Very good. When you say you fixed that relationship, do you mean it was the support that you gave your husband that enabled him to navigate a very difficult, high conflict situation? Or do you mean you had an independent friendship with her and talked her into not alienating?
No, it was more about correcting what had been said to the child, helping them to recognize that the child had been abused by his second wife, and all of us now, and the problem being that this child had never told any of us, either of his parents, I should say, what the second wife had been doing to him and saying to him. And once we had that exposed, now we had an answer. Now we could heal the wounds, and it became a much healthier relationship.
And to make the point, Joan, when you say abuse, you mean abuse through parental alienation. Am I right there?
Yes. Not all parental alienation is committed by a biological parent. In this particular case, it was a step parent that was doing it to the child.
Which is common, isn't it?
Yeah. So
tell
go
us.
ahead.
No, I don't know if I interrupted you. I was going to ask you about your professional work, and that's a great. Did you finish the personal take on how you got in?
Yes, basically, that's how I started in it.
Right.
And I started working with Dr. Gardner. And I don't know, did I mention Dr. Gardner yet today?
Well, no, I think I do want to hear about that professional side. Please go ahead. I'm eager to hear.
So 25 years ago, when I started recognizing that the second wife keeping the children from my husband was not okay. And in my mind, immediately I thought, this is psychological abuse of the children. I started doing internet searches. And back then we didn't have real effective internet search, but parental alienation came up with the name Dr. Gardner. And I went, oh my God, I know Dr. Gardner. He was my therapist when I was a child. I went to school with his kids, and all my friends used to hang out at his house.
And this is the Dr. Richard Gardner that has been smeared and disparaged about being a pedophile, right, Joan?
Correct. And this is an out and out lie. What happened was, it was a group of women who Dr. Gardner had testified against, or about the fact that they were withholding and alienating their children from a healthy relationship with the other parent. And they didn't like this. So they started taking comments and twisting them to try and make him look like he was a pedophile. One of which was, he said that children at a very young age naturally will be sexually explorative. This is just very normal behavior of children. It's in every single psychology book you read on children. Well, they took that and twisted it to be him being a pedophile. That's like saying Freud is a pedophile and an abuser. It's not. They were just providing scientific information.
I want to thank you for defending Dr. Gardner. That's important to hear. Please continue about your work and how you got into PASI.
So Dr. Gardner convinced me to start making sure we got peer review articles out. He said these were very important. We needed to get more and more. So I started pushing for more and more peer review. At the time, there were only about 5 of us here in Connecticut that were speaking up, writing letters, testifying, talking to legislators, writing articles. And so it was very difficult. But for every person
about parental alienation, right, Joan?
Correct. Only about parental alienation.
Sure.
And so it was 1984 that Dr. Gardner created this term, but back then I didn't know. It wasn't until 10 years later that the term came to me when I had to do an internet search. So at this point, I'm now reaching out to other parents and other professionals and telling them the importance of peer review articles. So with each person that we would talk to, that person would educate somebody else, who would educate somebody else, who would educate somebody else. So exponentially, we've gone from like a handful of people to thousands and thousands of parents and experts who have witnessed firsthand the serious consequences of impeding the relationship between the children and the other parent. I like to call it domestic violence by proxy.
Right. So tell us about then the support intervention of the parental alienation and what resources it gives to its members.
Right now, what we provide is a dirt cheap membership. It's $25 once a year. It's not a lot of money. Why? By the time most of our clients get to us, they are financially devastated. They are emotionally devastated. They are physically devastated. It is why we promote something called HHSS, happy, healthy, successful, and spiritually positive. I want them in therapy. I want them exercising. I want them, enjoy the work you do and believe in yourself. That's their spiritual positivity. They need to have this so that they can be there for their children when the children finally figure this out. We also provide them, we have the largest searchable database of experts and professionals, and it grows on a daily basis. We offer a free international online support group for parents and professionals that originally began with Yahoo Groups. But when Yahoo Groups shut down, it took us some time to find another platform. We now use Mighty Networks, which actually is phenomenal. It offers us the ability to do events, to do different groups, to have group conversations, whatever is necessary. We also provide dirt cheap consulting at $50 an hour, but you have to be a member to qualify for that inexpensive consulting. We also do referrals out to experts via this expert professionals list that somebody can go through this list, and there's just, it's listed by country, then it's listed by state, city, last name, and first name. So people can actually find what they need. We're in the middle of actually building a more effective database than what we're using right now. We have a massive website with over 50 chapters around the world. Some of the chapters run better than others, but they at least have one person running them, 1, 2, could be 8, maybe more people assisting in that chapter. Depends on how things are going or what goes on in that state. Some states, because while they're a bigger state, real estate wise, they have a smaller population. We have massive amount of articles. We work with another organization or consortium that is a group of over 50 organizations who work together. We're part of shared parenting, the International Shared Parenting. We're part of many other organizations working together to find a solution to this family court dysfunction.
Joan, you're leaving out what I think is the best part. What do you do for individually? What do you do for your members?
I will get on a phone with them. I will email back and forth to them. I will send them if they need a resource, they need an evidentiary article, they need information on why traditional family therapy doesn't work, why they're, having proper assessment tools used. I will provide them resources to their attorneys, get them to a proper therapist for themselves or for reunification therapy if needed.
And you actually have a one-on-one coaching service for these members, correct? At a very deeply discounted rate.
Right. It's through the nonprofit. Every drop of money goes back to the nonprofit so we can pay the bills and help parents. We have a parent who's in such a financial bind that they can't even move forward in their own life, let alone keep a roof over their head. And so we try to help them as often as we have financial ability to do so.
Thank you for all the work that you do. What changes do you feel that there needs to be in family court to protect parents, children, and families?
Well, I'm going to go along with the chief justices. The chief court justices in 2016 created the Family Justice Initiative Triage and Pathways Program. This program was started because they realized there was a serious problem with the family courts and that they were very dysfunctional.
Just to clarify, you don't need to change. You're not saying you want to change those justices. You're saying you want to go along with this change that they are proposing, correct?
You've got it.
Keep going.
One of the things is stop the adversarial process. Family court should not be about adversarial. We need to learn to help these parents work together, how to mediate. If they can't always, nobody gets along 100% of the time. But if we can teach them how to work together, even when things aren't going the way they want, pulling in a third party to assist them, great. We need to remove, any professionals that aren't properly trained because they're gumming up the works. If they're not properly trained and educated, they get it wrong. You can't just use one assessment to decide that a parent shouldn't be a parent, or that there's abuse, or that there isn't abuse, or that there's parental alienation, or there isn't parental alienation. Parental alienation is real. It is not something that is just used by abusive men. I have just as many men and women who are alienated. And reality is, the government's own statistics and the research of Denise Hines shows that actually women are more abusive than men. Small percentage more, but it's a fact. Why? I can't tell you, but it could be because it could be that they have the kids more often. Who knows? But it's a fact that women are more abusive. I'm not telling you men don't abuse. Of course they do. Women abuse.
Joan, in other conversations we had, you mentioned something about consequences for lodging false allegations. Could you expound on that a little bit?
Yes. One of my concerns is, while I feel that parental alienation should be a crime, the problem is that when somebody files an allegation, if we penalize them because it comes back unsubstantiated, then true victims of abuse will not be able to file because they'll be too afraid that they're going to be arrested. So we have to have a better set of assessment tools and trainings to recognize when we have true allegations and when we have false. So right now, there are 14 assessment tools that can be used to determine whether a case is true abuse or parental alienation. These tools, I would never say use one tool. That's kind of like doing a research project and not backing it up and being able to duplicate your results. You need to use at least 3 of these assessment tools and have them back each other up. That's the only verifiable way of proving what's going on.
Joan, a shout out to you and a thank you. You also wrote a fantastic article that I turned into a very good video about those 14 diagnostic assessment tools. Our viewers can find that in my second parental alienation playlist set. And also for self-represented litigants, they can also find out the top 3 assessment tools in the video: the 5-factor model, the 8 behavioral manifestations of alienated children in contrast to estranged or abused children, and also the 17 alienating behaviors of alienating parents. So there's a resource for our viewers who are going through this. And Joan's article is excellent about that.
Yes, and not only that, that is more so important for the professionals. Guardian ad litems are mostly attorneys. They're not trained in psychology. And unless they are, they should not be acting as a guardian ad litem because they don't understand the psychological ramifications. In addition to which, attorneys are trained adversarially. This is exactly what we don't need in the family court. We need non-adversarial process. We need more of a mediation process. We need a more coming to the table and meeting of the minds. And if you have a parent who's refusing to cooperate, refusing to mediate, or at least offer up reasonable options, then that's pretty much a red flag that that parent needs to be in therapy, needs to deal with their own family of origin issues. One of the things that I have noticed, and it's not official statistical status research, but from my querying of hundreds of parents, the one question I always ask them is, was the other parent abused as a child, whether physically, sexually, or psychologically? 99% of them all say the same thing, that the other parent was abused as a child and nobody ever saved them. And so what I believe happens here is that alienating parent is projecting their family of origin issues through the children onto the other parent in an attempt to save little them. It's kind of what I call borderless boundaries. They don't know that there's borders and boundaries between their life, their family of origin, their feelings, and their children's.
So go ahead. I didn't realize you were
kind of why, because the system is so dysfunctional, is kind of why I created a program called 3 Strikes You're Out. Because the judges were having a hard time. They're stuck on the fence. We've got all these experts who aren't really experts necessarily, like a guardian ad litem, deciding and making recommendations on custody when they're not even properly trained for this. It's why I created the 3 Strikes You're Out program. I had several experts assist me with this: Brian Ludmer, Catherine McWillie, Linda Gottlieb, Shoji Zhang, but mostly Catherine McWillie did most of the assistance with this. And basically it's a 12-week program, but it only allows for 3 chances for a parent to comply. And there's a lot of bells and whistles that are in this program. And if at the end of 12 weeks, there's been no strikes, well, this is like getting 90 days of positive parenting time for the parent and the children. If there's a strike, the first strike is a $200 fine and or 5 days of extra time with the targeted parent and or 5 days of community service for the alienating parent with children who don't have any parents.
So this 3 Strikes program, this is something that you would suggest that litigants, lawyers, should bring to the attention of the judge and propose that the parties undertake so that the couple is working together, the parents are working together.
Right. One of the things we find with this program is that when we put something in place, the other parent, the alienating parent, their behaviors oftentimes will stop. But once that order ends, or they don't think there's any eyes on them anymore, they start up again. So with this program, there's 3 strikes. As I mentioned, the first strike. Second strike, everything's triplicated, which means 200 becomes 600. 5 days becomes 15. Third strike, everything's triplicated again. So 600 becomes $1,800. 15 days becomes 45 days. And at this point, a judge can determine whether it's time to make a change of custody temporarily to the targeted parent, and that the other parent must pay for intensive reunification therapy.
Joan, when this was used, had there already been some type of conflict and lack of co-parenting? And is that why this is brought out to remediate and correct?
I'm not sure what the right. I think that the point of the program was to put some oversight that was readable, oversight that a judge could recognize, hey, I've got a parent who's been told they're supposed to be in counseling, not going counseling, or that the children are supposed to be in counseling and they're not bringing the kids to counseling, or they've been told to stop bad-mouthing the other parent and ensure that the kids come with a good attitude to the other parent's house, and they're not.
So you use this when something's going wrong, right?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And then let's say we get through this first stage 1. And after 12 weeks, all of a sudden the other parent starts in again. Well, guess what starts all over? Stage 2. And any previous strikes follow through to the next stage. So it's kind of a way to keep it in line and stop this adversarial aggressive process and get more of a appropriate
co-parenting situation.
Yeah.
Right. So Joan, as a support advocate in PASI and helping these people who are going through this, what are some of your biggest challenges?
Some of the biggest challenges are the lack of proper education. These professionals that are being used tend to use traditional family therapy, which has been determined over and over and over in case after case to do more harm than good. When we use traditional family therapy, we're empowering the child, because under traditional family therapy, you are supposed to give the identified patient, the child, all the power and control. Well, the problem with that is that the alienator is actually controlling the child. So you're not giving the child the control, you're actually giving the alienating parent more control. And the whole point is to stop that and to give back the authority and the respect to the targeted parent. So you cannot use traditional family therapy. You need to kind of follow with Salvatore Minuchin, as Linda Gottlieb would say, his theories of structural family therapy and family systems therapy to change this unhealthy dynamic. The child should not be sitting on top of the parent's shoulders dictating everything. The parent should be able to parent. And if their authority and their respect has been usurped by the other parent, the dynamic is wrong. The child is controlling, and the other parent is controlling through the child.
So Joan, what has been your biggest accomplishment in the work that you've been doing?
Probably watching families get their children back. Watching children come and get the realization and healing, getting proper training and education out to the right people. Like right now, we've been asked to do a training program for the judges in North Carolina. This is very important, because if the judges are trained properly and the family relations are trained properly, we don't need the attorneys to do all this. And I understand the attorneys feel like they're losing their golden egg. This is a multi-billion-dollar business, family court. I got that. But that's not the right answer. There's a lot of other areas in the court, in the legal system, that you can work in without destroying families. And children.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the one thing that scares the hell out of me is these children that are not getting the proper mental health help, not in the proper mental health programs. They're getting worse. They're becoming exponentially narcissistic, losing their ability to have compassion and empathy. And these are going to be the people that are running this world. And I can't even begin to imagine how devastating that will be to our world, to have nothing but these very unhealthy minds in our government.
So what would you recommend for our listeners, for people who are involved in a high conflict situation that's involving parental alienation, for the targeted parents? What advice do you have for them? First
things first, not 100% of alienation cases have an allegation of abuse or neglect. It is why a parent must protect themselves at all times from false allegations.
You either have to have 100%, you said?
I have never found a case where there isn't been an allegation of some kind of abuse or neglect, whether it be formal or informal. There's always an allegation.
And what's the strategy behind that? Why so?
Because it gives them control of the case. Because if they can create any doubt in the judge's mind, in a therapist's mind, in the evaluator's mind, in a guardian ad litem's mind, that the other parent might not be up to snuff and might be a problem, then they can win the case. And especially if they can get these allegations falsely substantiated. It is a huge, huge, huge problem. It's why I call it domestic violence by proxy. The parent is using the children to antagonize and harm the other parent, whether it be them being rude and nasty, whether them hating the other parent, fearing the other parent, whether they're going to that house and being destructive or not coming at all. And so that's domestic violence by proxy, using the children to abuse the other parent. When they start to make false allegations and they report it to, let's say, Child Protective Services, that's using an agency to exact revenge and violence, domestic violence by proxy against the other parent. And when that doesn't work, they'll go to the family courts or the criminal courts, and they'll file criminal charges, or they'll go into the family courts and keep filing vexatious litigation, causing legal abuse syndrome. This is domestic violence by proxy, be using the courts to attack somebody. I've seen it where they go to the person's job and get them fired. That's domestic violence by proxy. Anything to harm the other parent. And not
Joan,
physically, but psychologically.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Any other advice?
One, document, and document some more. I need it in chronological order, short summary statements. If you have evidence to back that up, you can put it in as an addendum, put it in as a hyperlink for your attorney, but the point is to show a pattern of behavior. Why? Because you can't use the word parental alienation in most courts. They don't accept the term. Be honest, I don't care what you call it. I don't care if you call it my big left toe. It's abuse. So you could call it coercive control. You can call it domestic violence by proxy. You could call it hostile aggressive parenting. The point is, describe the elephant in the room. Let the experts call it a pachyderm. When we get that, then we have the ability to, and I'm trying to shut something. All right. Then we have the ability to show this pattern to them. So if you're describing an elephant, you say it's a big, huge animal. Most of the time it's gray. It weighs a lot of tons. It's got a long trunk and loves peanuts. Well, we know what that is. It's an elephant. So if you're describing the patterns, I don't see my kids. I had a great, healthy relationship before we separated. My kids and I used to take my kids to their baseball games, to softball. I do the cooking. Then we got separated. And now all of a sudden my kids hate me. They don't want to see me. I'm not allowed at their games. They tell me I abuse them, on and on. So you've got to show that pattern. That's number one. Number two, you need to protect yourself from false allegations. You cannot be alone with your children until such time that either a judge has determined that the allegations are false, there's a Strobel order in place, or some other mechanism to prevent you from being falsely accused. This means you either have to have witnesses with you at all times or some kind of audio device going. I can go into this more at another time with them, but it is the only way I've got to protect them from false allegations.
Okay. And again,
also, they need to be able to they may need to bring in experts. I want them in therapy. There is no way you're going to convince me that with all this legal abuse syndrome and the living death of not seeing your children, that you are not emotionally upset about it and don't have PTSD or stress or anxiety. And you need to be able to deal with those triggers. It's not easy.
Who has been some of your strongest influences?
Linda Gottlieb is my first choice. Then you've got Lynn Steinberg, Amy Baker, Jennifer Harmon, Bill Burnett, Dr. Miller, Dr. Richard Warshak. I mean, Catherine McWillie, Brian Ludmer, these are just to name a few of the many experts that I have worked with. They are proficient. They know their stuff. And I'm always enamored by any new information any of them get.
Joan, if someone needs help, and they want to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
The best way to do it is to go to our website. It's www.P as in Peter, A as in Apple, S as in Sam, -intervention.org. On that site, there'll be something near the top that says contact form or contact us. And you can click on that and it'll take you out to what's called the JOT form. And you just complete that intake form that gives you the ability to pay the $25 membership so that you can get these extra resources as well. We do have an email. You can email us, but I'm still going to kick you back to the website for the intake.
Very good. So anyone who's viewing, if you want more information about Joan, please check the description portion of this video, these resources and locations that she's mentioning. You can find that contact information in there. So for now, Joan, let's leave it there. And I want to thank you for not only helping me with all the videos that are on the site in that parental alienation list, but for being a guest on the Law Center videocast.
Oh, you're so welcome, Larry. Thank you for everything you've been doing too. It's been wonderful to work with you.
My pleasure. We have been here talking with Joan Kloth-Zanard, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. We will be broadcasting live on Tuesdays at 7, where you can interact with us in real time while we watch the videocast together. Please try out other information legal videos on my channel, specifically the self-help playlist for self-represented litigants in family court. If you guys like this, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so you can catch all our new great videos and share them with your contact list, social media friends, and other people you know that are going through the family court system. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time. Bye for now.